This episode is brought to you by Small Space Pilates, an online community of live classes and videos consisting of Pilates, strength, and stretch classes that help you become longer, leaner, and stronger. Small Space Pilates is an online community where you don't have to be perfect. You can wear your comfy clothes and turn your space into your own personal fitness studio. To learn more, go to smallspacepilates.com, and remember, it's not just a class, it's a community. Welcome to the Sisters in Service podcast. My name is Kat Corchado, also known as the voice connecting women veterans nationwide. This podcast is for anyone connected with the military, from veterans, male and female, military spouses, military brats, even parents who may have children who are in the military. As an Air Force veteran, I understand the trials and triumphs that women veterans go through in service and out of service. And so I wanted to find a way that I could put it out there into the airwaves and let everyone know what we're going through and find a way and a solution to what's happening to us in the service. I also like to highlight these women who are business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're bosses in their business. And so I hope that you will follow me, you will share, and you will subscribe to this podcast, which comes out every week on Tuesdays. And as always, please stay safe, take care of each other until next time. And it's never too late to start your impossible. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Sisters in Service podcast. You know me, my name is Kat Corchado, and my guest today is Jennifer Garrett. Now, I know, you know what I'm going to say. You may not know her, but you probably do. You just don't know that you do. First of all, she's a branding expert. She is the creator of Move the Ball movement. She is a mom of 5. She's an Army officer in the Guard. She's an author. She's the host of the podcast Move the Ball and has 7 college degrees. And she's not 80 years old. Okay. So welcome, Jen.
Hey, Kat, thanks so much for having me on today.
Of course. This is just impressive. And she got this all on one page, y'all. I'm just saying. I'm impressed. I'm just saying. So out of all of this, Jen, what came first? So were you in the Guard first and then everything else came after that? How did this all come about?
So I started having kids first. I was 17, turning 18 when I had my first child. I have 1 boy, 4 girls. There's a 20-year gap between the oldest and the youngest. So I still have a very young one at home, a 6-year-old. But so I started having kids early in life. Wasn't the plan, but you know how life happens and things happen. So I was in school while I was raising my children. I didn't go into the National Guard until after I finished law school because I had always wanted to go active duty and to serve, but being a single parent and having kids, it just was a little bit too much to do. So I thought a way that I could still achieve my goal of being able to serve is by joining the reserve component. And so I went into the National Guard after law school as a lawyer.
Wow. So how did you get 7 degrees? Was it by accident or how did that happen? Did you actually go after all these degrees or was it are you one of those people that you have a double major? Are you one of those?
So for undergrad, I did do 2 engineering degrees. I did an electrical engineering major and a biomedical engineering major. All the rest of them I did at different universities, but I did do some of them concurrently. So when I was in law school, I also did another master's of arts in communication and leadership. And so I did do some in parallel, but for me, it was very intentional. One of the things that I was fortunate of having was I worked for employers that had a generous education benefit. And so because of that, and I love to learn, I thought, you know what, let me leverage that tuition assistance. And also I felt like I was getting paid more by doing it because they were paying for my degree right on my behalf. And so I ended up having 4 degrees fully paid for by employers. And then I had a 5th one, my MBA. My MBA was my 3rd degree, but that one was paid for about a third by an employer. So I leveraged the benefits that the companies that I worked for had so that I could get these educational accomplishments.
And that's using your resources, y'all. Just saying.
Yes.
So, Jen, which of these degrees have served you the best?
That's a great question. I would say the MBA has probably been the one that has had the biggest impact for me just because of the business background that I had learned through school. I was an engineering major in undergrad. Back then, they didn't teach you anything about business. And so while I had learned a lot about finance from my dad growing up, I didn't know a lot about just the business world. And like I said, engineering doesn't really teach you that. Now I think it's changed some, but back then they didn't. So for me, just having that business awareness, that bigger picture strategic thinking type of mindset and mentality instilled in me through my MBA program was really helpful as I continued to navigate through the corporate world as well as, climb the corporate ladder.
Absolutely. So, tell our audience a little bit about the culture shock, if there was one, from being civilian to going into the reserve and guard. Because sometimes, when I went to basic training, and we had several reserve and guard reservists, I think you call them,
Mm-hmm.
when we were in basic training. And basic is 6 weeks, and day three for like 3 days and 3 nights, they were just crying, and we're like, "Look, you guys get to go home after this, so stop it." So, what was that like for you? Was there a culture shock for you?
It wasn't too bad because when I went into the Army National Guard, I was 30. How old was I? I was 33 when I went in. And so I had been in my civilian career working for defense contractors. So I got to see a lot of blue suiters, green suiters, active duty folks. So I was familiar kind of with that culture. Now it's different, obviously, being a civilian or a contractor working with Army or Navy or Air Force, professionals versus actually being in the military, right? So there were some cultural things you had to learn as far as, how you interacted, what you said, what you wore, those kind of things. But I was pretty familiar with it. And then the other thing is being in the National Guard as an officer, you had 24 months to complete your initial schooling. So I didn't go to school right away. So I was in over a year before I went to it's called direct commissioned officer course before I went to that. So I had also been kind of acclimated to the way that the military operated, even as a soldier before I went away from my basic training.
Is it easier now to do your 2 weeks when you go, or is it, or because it seems as though you would have to put everything on hold because you have to
Mm-hmm.
do your 2 weeks? Is it still foreign to you, or is it like, oh, my 2 weeks are coming, let me go do this, come back? It seems to me, and just tell me if I'm right or wrong, that you're able to just slip in and out of this like it's not a big deal.
You are, and you know when your commitments are going to be. So every fiscal year, your unit will let you know when your drill weekends are going to be, when our planned annual training is going to be scheduled for. Of course, those things can change, but it allows you to plan. And then, just like everything, we have to adjust and adapt as things need to shift. But we do get a pretty good picture of when we might need to go away so we can plan. And being a single parent, it's good for me to have that so that way I know, who I can, when I need to tap into my resources and support to be able to cover the care for my younger kids while I'm gone.
Absolutely. I was a single parent in the military, and that's a big deal, knowing that
Yes.
your kids are taken care of and treated, the way you would treat them, if not better. So I totally understand that. Let's shift gears a little bit and let's talk about the move the ball movement. And you work with executives and professional athletes of the NFL and the NBA on creating powerful brands and using those brands to move the ball. See how she did that, folks?
Yes.
In business. So, was that your intention? Okay, let me backtrack. How did that concept come about? Like, when were you, like, where were you? What were you doing? You're like, oh, this is a great idea.
Yeah, great question. So I always thought that I was going to be a corporate professional, climb the corporate ladder. My goal was to be a Fortune 500 CEO. That's the plan. And so that's what I did. I worked. I looked at, ways to advance. And then my dad had passed away very unexpectedly in 2016, which really forced me to kind of rethink my life's purpose. What happened was my mom had called me. I was sitting at my dining room table and I saw the phone ring and I was like, oh, it's my mom. I'll call her back later. I'm too busy, is what I told myself. And that was a phone call. She was letting me know my dad had passed No forewarning. My dad had not been sick. And so it was a complete surprise. So I was thinking about, well, what the heck was I too busy doing that I couldn't take a phone call, right? And I was always working and I loved it. I loved my job. I loved the people. But it was what I realized when my dad passed was the world keeps moving, whether you're in it or not. And all of these things that I've been building on my resume, the 7 degrees, all these bullet points, at the end of the day, when it's my time to leave, no one's going to care about those things, right? And so my thought was, well, what's the legacy? What do I want to leave behind that's bigger than myself? I had written a book called Move the Ball, which was all about football, American football, and how you take those principles and lessons and apply them to be successful. And what had happened over time was people started sharing about how they had moved the ball every single day. And I realized that people were catching on to this concept of just move forward, move that dang ball an inch, a foot, a yard. It wasn't about football anymore. It was about just, take the circumstances you have in your life, no matter what happens each and every day, find a way to keep pushing just a little bit. Some days you move farther, some days you don't, but just keep moving. Right. And so I realized that was the thing. That was the legacy, because people would call me and they'd be like, hey, Jen, I heard someone say move the ball today and I thought of you. And so that became synonymous with me. And so I was like, that's the legacy. So I decided that one day I would leave my corporate job behind and focus on growing this movement full time. And so November 5th of 2019, which would have been my dad's birthday, I walked away from my corporate job. Single mom, 5 kids, great paying job, left it all behind. Well, not the kids. They came with me.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes.
So it sounds like your book is about strategy for life and for business.
Mm-hmm.
I find that people in the military were really good at that quick pivot. Okay, this isn't working, or okay, let's pivot. Let's go over here. Let's do this. My dad always used to say, have a backup plan for your backup plan.
Yes. Yep.
You have your A plan, B plan, C plan. So let me ask you this question. Are you a sports fan of the NBA and or NFL? Are you a football fan?
I am a diehard football fan, and I'm a diehard basketball fan. More so football. Football's number 1. Basketball is number 2. I haven't watched as much NBA recently. I follow more college basketball. There's no particular reason. It's really just a matter of time, right? We only have so many hours in the day, and so you got to pick and choose what you spend your time on. So I've been focusing more on college basketball, but football, NFL, college, all of it. I watch it all.
Yeah, I've been a college basketball fan. And no, I don't have a particular team, just in general, because of when you watch, especially, during March Madness, okay? Mm-hmm. And that you see, the fever of it, the intensity of it. Sorry, NBA, the intensity is just not there for me. Not like that.
Sure.
I love NFL. I love football. And I started watching football back in the day. Now, y'all, I'm going to date myself. Back when it was always the Cowboys and the Steelers that were in the, in the, what do you call it? The Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And my dad would make me go find stuff that he didn't own just to get me out of the room. But, and I would learn stuff along the way. And so I got to a point where I could actually enjoy watching football because, I knew what was happening. I knew what was going on. And so was it your intention to market this to executives and professional athletes? Or did it just happen that way?
So my goal, yes and no. My goal was to market it to professionals in the corporate space, not professional athletes. I had always been like, oh, that'd be super cool to do, but I didn't know anybody. When I wrote Move the Ball, the book, I didn't know a single person that played college ball, that played professional ball. So I didn't have any contacts. And because of that, I thought, well, maybe one day if somehow, some way I come across that, then yes. But my focus is really more on going after people that were in the corporate world because that's where I was. That's where I played, right? And that's where I had a resume where people would be like, wow, impressive. Yes, let's talk more. And then what happened over time was I'm a big believer in the power of networking, genuine, authentic relationships. And So I just started connecting with people in sports. I'd physically show up to events and start meeting people, or I'd use social platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I'd start connecting. Did everybody want to connect? No, and that's okay, right? But you got to put yourself out there, show up, and then you'll attract the right people you're meant to attract. And so what happened was I started getting people that were interested in understanding what my perspectives were when it came to football. And the entertainment industry is small, the football world is small, the basketball world is small. And so once you start having connections and people that are willing to put their name and their brand out there for you and help open doors, then you'll continue to move forward. And so that's what happened. Was I was fortunate to have people that were willing to help me and to lend their name out. And so then I just kept connecting, and it just grew from there. But it was never it was not like I said, okay, I have this book, I'm going to go after professional athletes, and I made a playbook to just go after that. It just kind of evolved in that direction. But that my intent originally was just more the corporate space.
It just kind of happens that way sometimes. I've been in the fitness industry for 37 years, and I was working at a particular club, and apparently in the Charlotte area, we had quite a few people football players, professional football players who lived here, but they played for various sports in other states. And one football player came in and tried Pilates, and he told his friend, and then his friend told another friend. And all of a sudden we have this studio full of NFL football players, and it just kind of happened. So I just thought it was very cool to see these big guys who would rather bench press 350 than hold their legs straight up and, without shaking and sweating and trembling. But for people who are listening, such as myself, an entrepreneur, a podcaster, how does the move the ball movement pertain to us, or does it?
Sure, it does, because it's all about forward motion every single day. So first in the book, I talk about defining what it means to win. And so getting that clarity, right? No matter who you are, if you're a business owner, you're in corporate, like, what is success for you, right? Not just from a corporate standpoint or a business standpoint, but in all areas of your life. And then putting a playbook together, your strategies and the actions you need to take to be able to move forward. And then it's just execute every single day. You got to execute no matter what happens, right? Just focus. And things happen, life happens. So sometimes all the things that we want to get done, we don't get done, right? That happens quite a bit. So it's really about just making sure that you're getting some things done and giving yourself that grace. If you didn't get done all that you wanted to, it's okay. There's tomorrow, right? You can work on that as well. And I have another book that's come out. It's called Dominate the Game: How Life Changes When You Show Up. That's a complement to Move the Ball. And in there, I talk about some important concepts to moving forward too, which is, for example, controlling what you can control. Right. And so that's a common phrase that's used in the sports world. And it's focusing on the things that you can impact and effectuate, especially in today's times with all this stuff that's going on with the economy and just the world is in a lot of hurt. And we don't need to go into a long discussion, right? But there's a lot of things that are going on that people just get so caught up into. And instead of that, like, just focus on the things that you can do, right? I can't control the stock market fluctuations every day. So I may look at it. Some days I may not be happy with it, but I'm like, okay, it is what it is. And one day my retirement will come back, right? But I focus on the things that I can focus on instead of all these other economic factors that I have no influence over. And so that's what you need to look at. Another concept in the Dominate the Game book is about managing the game clock. So when you're looking at moving the ball forward every single day, you have to look at how are you spending your time. Are you managing your time each day in an effective manner, or are you just filling your calendar with busy work? Or are you just sitting on the couch doing nothing? We're like, well, how are you spending those minutes? And are you prioritizing the right things each and every day?
Absolutely. You're speaking my language. And there were two things that you said. One was, being a fan of sports and also having played sports. I remember coaches saying, take what the defense or the offense gives you. Take advantage of that. But also the time management part, it's easy to sit there and say, oh, I have a half an hour before my next meeting. I really can't do anything. Well, to me, a half an hour means I might get 15, 20 minutes or maybe the whole podcast edited in that half an hour. And so rather than saying, oh, I can't get that done, maybe I can, maybe I can walk for 15, 20, 30 minutes before my
Right.
meeting. So I try to utilize those small amounts of time where a lot of people say, I don't have time to do that. I'm like, maybe I do have time to do that. You know what I
Right.
mean? I have a friend of mine who talks about airplane time, and she goes, put your phone on airplane mode and, work on a particular project or knock out a couple emails or something that's on your to-do list. And I
Mhm.
think that's, you have to find out what works for you though.
Right.
But I also want to talk about you a little bit. You are just super successful in what you do. How do you manage all the balls, sports balls,
Yes. Yep. Mhm.
that you have in the air? I mean, how do you manage all of this? How do you balance all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it can be a challenge to balance, being a single parent. I've got my military career as well, just so you know. I mean, I drive 300 miles one way to do my drill weekend. So, I mean, there's a time commitment there
Yes.
as well, there and back. It's very tiring to do all that driving in a 2 day period, essentially. And then as an entrepreneur, you know what that life is like. It's 24/7. So it's really about prioritization. And people talk about that all the time. Okay, you should prioritize. All right, we get that. Wonderful, right? It's an easy concept. How do you implement that? One of the things that I do, I am a very big believer in the art of planning. So every Sunday, I plan out my week. And I look at, okay, what are the things that I really want to get done this week, right? Clarity on those things for the week. And then I look at, okay, what are the things I need to do each and every day? So not like the hundred of things on a to-do list, like the no kidding big things that I can get
Yes.
done, right? That I can feel like I have moved the ball and I have made progress if I do these things. Now, there's always so many other things that are competing for our time. So let's say I have 5 goals, but these 5 goals don't all need to get done this week. 2 of those goals I can work on next week. I'm going to shift those things to next week, and all of the activities around them, I'm going to plan for next week instead of trying to cram them all into this week. What that does is 2 things. One, it gives me more time to work on the things that I want to get done this week. But 2, more importantly, it takes off the pressure and the stress of feeling like I need to get these things done. If I know I'm going to work on these things next week, I'm not thinking about them this week anymore because I know
Right.
those are not the priority for this week. That's next week's agenda. So when you take the time to plan out the important things for this week, be very clear on the goals that you want to get done, and then you prioritize your time. You mentioned doing tasks and putting your phone on airplane mode. I like to carve out blocks of time for specific tasks, and I will have my phone away from me. Now, sometimes I do have my phone there and I'll get a notification. When I do that, I may even check that phone sometimes. But what I will do is I may look to see what it is. I will not respond to it because I'm telling myself if I look at it, okay, Jen, look at it, but you're not going to give into that response or anything because you're working on this other task. So when you can condition yourself to be very disciplined with that, you get so much more effective because you're not just checking into all these notifications and responding to whatever happens in that moment. You're focusing on what you need to get done. And then when you're done with it, then go ahead, take a break, respond to those notifications, send a couple emails, whatever you want to do, but make sure you've
Absolutely.
gotten those things done first, and then you take the break.
Absolutely. There are even days when I go to sit down in front of the computer and I just look at it and go, I can't do this today.
Mhm, mhm.
I look at my calendar and I'm like, what can I shift to another day? You
Yes.
have to protect that part of you, I
Mhm.
think, when you're in
Yes.
business. So, Jen, what do you do to protect that me time? Or what do you do to power down? Like, what kind of mindfulness? How do you take care of Jen out of all of this stuff that you do? When is Jen time?
I schedule it into that plan as well. So I'm going to take a break. As I mentioned, I have 5 kids. 3 of them are not living with me anymore. I have 2 at home, a 13 and a 6-year-old. So they also have demands and they want you to be there and do stuff. So in the evening, sometimes I'm going to tell myself, you know what, today I'm not going to work on things. And yeah, that might prolong me getting something done from my business, but I'm okay with that because my priority for the evening is spending that time with the family. And so you have to be mindful of those things and willing to it's not all about work. It's not all about the hustle and the grind, because you're going to run yourself ragged. So you need to schedule in that time for your family, for your friends, for yourself, and then make sure that you take that time. Now, there might be some emergency that you need to focus on your business and you don't get to get that me time today. Okay, shift that to another day so you're still taking care of yourself. But when you put that in your schedule, the likelihood that you're going to do it is so much greater than if you just have it, oh yeah, in my head today, maybe later tonight I'll go, I'll go get a drink, or maybe I'll go meet my friend for dinner. What happens is, if anything else happens, that you're like, oh no, I can't, I got to push that thing because now I have to focus on my business. But if you schedule it in, the likelihood of you sticking with it is a lot greater. Again, there might be a time that you have to move it, but then you adjust it. But plan those things out so that way you've got them accounted for in your schedule.
There are one-offs, but I think, what I do is on Saturday, I get my schedule set for the rest of the week because Sunday is me day.
Good.
And I tell my clients, don't call me or text me unless your hair is on fire. Something's, if you say, hey, I need to talk to you, I'm assuming there's an issue. There's a big issue. Right. But you have to protect that time. And what I mean by protect, and you may agree with me, is if someone says, hey, let's, can we do this on Sunday? And Sunday is your day. Now, if it's part of your day and you want to go have lunch with someone, by all means, go. But sometimes I just want to just power down. I don't want to talk about work. I don't want to talk about clients. I don't want to talk about anything. I just want to be, I just want to be, because that helps my brain to recharge. And so the other thing I do on Saturdays is everything I want to get off of my brain, I write it down. I have a book that I carry around with me all the time. When I get a thought, if it's a new way I'm going to go with my podcast or something for the business or something for whatever, I write it down in that book. And then I go back to it and I'll highlight it so that when I get it off my brain. Because how many times have you had a thought and you go, oh, I'll remember that next time, and then you go back to it and it's gone.
Yes. As I'm getting older, that happens more often. But yeah, what you're really talking about is setting boundaries, and it's okay to set boundaries.
Yes.
And it's okay to set boundaries with your clients too. And I think it's great that society has shifted and it allows people to understand that more, that, hey, it's not all about work. I mean, there are people that will say, wake up at 4 a.m. and, grind all day until midnight and go back to sleep, get a few hours and go back at it. But that's not the philosophy that I subscribe to. It's really about being intentional with the time that you're awake and the time that you're spending on your work, but also take the me time, set the boundaries. I have a client that reached out to me over this weekend. I was like, hey, I need you to update this for me. Can you do it today? And I was like, oh, it's Saturday. Like, I really don't want to do it right now. But I knew it was important to them. And so I said, yes, I will get it to you, but I will not get it to you until late this evening because I'm out right now. And she's like, okay, that's fine. But, don't let them think that you're just going to jump and immediately do what they're doing just because a client asks. Like, you're entitled to your time as well. And you can also push back and say, hey, do you really need this today? I'm kind of tired. You don't have to tell them what you're doing. You could just be vegging on the couch, right? But you can be like, hey, I'm tied up with other things today. Can we talk tomorrow? Can I get this to you tomorrow? Like, set those boundaries.
Absolutely. So for our audience, if someone's really struggling in moving the needle in their business or, getting, moving the ball, so to speak, and, just in life, what kind of advice would you give to them?
First, I would say breathe. It's okay.
Right?
Things happen to us all the time. And, we have to pause when those things happen. In my new book, Dominate the Game, I have a chapter called Call the Time Out. It's important to take those time outs and take the time that you need to reset, refocus. It's not always about re-energizing in terms of I'm super tired and I need to rest. Sometimes it's just about having a moment to just breathe and think through, okay, how do I pick myself back up? But also it's helpful when you look at how far you've gone and the progress you've made over the last week, the last month, the last year. That is helpful too when you see the growth and what you've done, because too often we don't take credit for the things that we do. So take some time to give yourself a good pat on the back. Say, hey, you know what? I've come a long way. And today, I might not get that much done today, but I'm going to take today for me and to refocus my plan. And then tomorrow, I'm going to hit the ground running again. It's okay. You don't have to make monumental steps every single day.
Right. I think as women, we're so not into, but our mindset, and I think because we are mothers most of the time, that, well, not most of the time, all the time, I guess, unless your kids are grown. It's what's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And we come across a day when we're like, I didn't get anything done today. But did you look back?
Right.
It's sometimes you've got to look back a month, 3 months, a year, and look at everything that's happened up to this point and go, oh my God, I say this to women veterans all the time. You have to look back and say, I am such a badass, and we never get a chance to do that. So although it seems as though you're not making that progress, look at where you started and look at where you are now.
Right.
And the other thing I want to say is there are times when you're sitting at your computer and you're trying to think this email or whatever it is you're trying to do, and it's just not working. It's just, you just want to say, you know what? I can't do this. And so what I do is I get up, I go outside, and I start walking. I'll just walk. And my goal is not to think about business. So I say, what do I smell? What do I see? What do I hear? And what do I feel? And I can guarantee you that after the walk, whatever that was stuck in my brain, that answer's right there. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Okay, let me go try that. And you have a fresh kind of start to it. And you look at it again with fresh eyes and you go, there it is. Why was I trying so hard? So that's just one of the things that I do for me. It helps me a lot. Plus I get my walk in, get my steps. So that helps a lot. So Jen, when you're doing your podcast, what kind of guests do you have? What is your I know your podcast is called Move the Ball, but what kind of guests do you have on your podcast?
Yeah, on the podcast, we talk about business, branding, career, sports topics. I have a good cross section of types of guests. Most of my guests recently have been professional athletes. So we're talking about mostly NFL guys, about their journey, but it's not X's and O's. It's really about the business of being a professional athlete, how they've used the competitive athlete mentality and lessons they've learned from playing sports to be successful, not only on the football field, but also beyond in terms of business. They're managing their brands, those kind of things as well. I've also had a lot of business leaders on that will talk about challenges they've had with their business and how they've overcome them, how they've moved the ball, right? And then I'll also have like some Fortune 500 C-suite people on that'll talk about leadership as well as career navigation tips for how you continue to move the ball when it comes to navigating your career and being a business leader.
Have you found, since you've been doing this, that athletes, I'm assuming, because they take that player mentality, because you have to be disciplined, number one. Do you find that they use that discipline in their business? Along with, I find that veterans are like that too, that they're very disciplined and they're willing to do what's required to get their business off the ground. Do you find that too with athletes?
Yes, for sure. Those lessons they have learned ever since they were kids, essentially, because they've been playing the sport their whole life, right? They take those beyond the game. And one of the things that they always do is they show up, which is important. They show up to whatever it is they're supposed to do, because that's what they're conditioned to do, perform at the task at hand, whether that's a business focused thing or it's on the football field, on the basketball court. It's really showing up and handling their business, right, is a common phrase that athletes will use. And so they tend to be very disciplined and they'll put in that work because that's what they're conditioned to do. No excuses. No, I don't feel like it today. Let me show up and make sure that I'm handling what I need to so that I can continue to move forward.
So there's no whining.
Usually not. For the most part, no, because their friends will tell them.
I don't want to do this today.
The other thing that I think is important from a competitive athlete standpoint, what they have that a lot of us don't face on a daily basis is they have the pressure of, if I don't perform today, someone else could take my spot, right? So it's highly, highly competitive. You mess
Yes.
up once, might be okay. If you continue to mess up, just little things, you're gone. They'll find somebody else. Whereas in the corporate world, for example, it's okay to make a mistake. You learn, you grow. There's not, okay, you're going to be fired tomorrow if you don't perform today. In the athlete space, you've got eyes watching you all the time. You're continually being evaluated. You've got to perform, or
Yes.
you're not going to be there anymore. So they also have that conditioned into them, which makes them more likely to do things, and they don't get complacent, because if they get complacent, they're not there.
So when you speak to people who, and maybe you don't, but for anyone who's listening who maybe didn't play sports, maybe they're a fan of sports, but they want to get into business, are there any rules that they need to know of getting into, because it's easy as a veteran and as someone who played sports to take the things that I've learned in the military and in sports and apply it to being an entrepreneur. It's like, I make a mistake. Okay, you learn from that mistake, you course correct, and you go on. What kind of, I guess, guidance would you give to someone who's never played sports to if they want to get into business, or they're already in business, but they're struggling?
Great question. So we talked about clarity before. So being clear on who are you serving, what are your goals, right? And then once you understand that, putting together your plan on how are you going to achieve those goals. Seems very basic, but a lot of people don't think about these things. But then it's about executing and being consistent. That consistency is so important, because a lot of people are not consistent. So, just doing what you need to do each and every day. You may not see the results that you want right away. Most likely you won't, right? But you just got to consistently put in that work, and you will see the outcomes that you want. There is another common saying in sports, which is trust the process. So figure out your process and trust that it will work if you consistently do the things that you need to do. But it's not going to be overnight. So you've got to put that work in. And then the other thing is, as part of that process, look at the habits that you have in place, not just in terms of what time you wake up and, is your diet a healthy one? No, that's important. But like, what are the things that you're doing for your business? Are those the right habits? Are you engaged in the right activities on a daily basis? And if you're not, well, then obviously you need to change that. But then you got to be consistent with those things.
So it's the showing up part.
Absolutely.
It's the showing up part. Jen, thank you so much for being here today. Where can people find you if they need your assistance?
Yeah, I have a website called getinsidethehuddle.com. Again, a sports reference. So you can learn more about me. You can connect with me. You can check out my Move the Ball book or the Dominate the Game book there. Check out the Move the Ball podcast as well. It's on all the major podcast platforms. And I'm on all the social media channels. If you just Google Move the Ball, you should find me. And, if I can help in any way, please reach out or give me a follow. I'm always putting out motivational content as well. So I'm there to be a resource.
Well, thank you, Jen, for being willing to be on the podcast. It's been such a pleasure having you. And to my audience and everyone listening, please stay safe. Take care of each other until next time. And it's never too late to start your impossible.